Our visit to Japan comes less than a month after thousands of people rallied on the Japanese island of Okinawa to protest plans to build a new U.S. military base. Demonstrators surrounded a government building and staged a sit-in inside. The protests came after local officials agreed to a deal in mid-December that'll relocate one of the existing U.S. bases from a densely populated urban area to a more remote location. But a decades-long movement of Okinawa residents has opposed the base altogether and pushed for ousting U.S. forces off the island, citing environmental concerns and sexual assaults by U.S. soldiers on local residents. One protester explained how the presence of the Okinawa base caused a major tragedy in his family.
I've never been able to accept any soldiers to be stationed here. One of the reasons go back to 1954 or 55, when I was in 8th or 9th grade. I had a 5-year-old relative named Yumiko Nagayama. An American soldier kidnapped her in a jeep in broad daylight. He took her to a field in Kadena and stripped her naked, then raped her, murdered her, and discarded her body.
The United States has been using Okinawa as a key military site since the bloody Battle of Okinawa in 1945, when more than 200,000 people were killed, most Japanese civilians. The U.S. now maintains 34 bases and 18,000 troops on Okinawa. For more, we're joined in our Tokyo studio by two guests. We're joined by Kozui Akibayashi, a professor and activist in Japan with the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom and the International Women's Network Against Militarism. John Junkerman is a documentary filmmaker living in Tokyo, currently working on a film about the U.S. military bases in Okinawa. His past films include Japan's Peace Constitution, also Hellfire, A Journey from Hiroshima, which was nominated for an Academy Award, and Power and Terror, Noam Chomsky in our times. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Let's begin with you, Kozui. Explain the latest developments in the Okinawa U.S. military base.
As you introduced, there has been a plan to relocate Futenma Air Station of the Marine Corps to a more remote area of Henoko and Nago City, and people have protested for longer than 15 years by now. The latest development for us to have surprise is that the governor of Okinawa approved the reclamation of the area, the planned area of Henoko in the sea area, to build the new facility, like you said, state-of-the-art Marine Corps facilities in this beautiful sea of Henoko.
Was that a change of position on the governor's part?
Yes and no. This is his second term. In his first term, he was clear that the relocation was necessary. In his second term, and he's up. This is the end of his second term of 4-year term. The second term, he said the relocation, the new base needs to be built outside Okinawa because people protested so hard for so long, and he realized that it's almost impossible. And that was the will expressed by the people of Okinawa for several years by now.
John Junkerman, if you could talk about the history of these U.S. bases in Okinawa. It's something you've been following for decades. Go back to why these U.S. military bases are there to begin with.
I think it's, you really have to see it in the long perspective. As you mentioned, the U.S. seized the island of Okinawa in 1945 after a battle that lasted for 2.5 months, in which over 200,000 people were killed. Literally, the entire island was drenched with blood. The island is the size of Long Island. It's a very small, New York's Long Island. It's a small island. And the U.S. seized that in the course, and in the weeks after that, months after that, dropped 2 bombs on Japan, and the war ended. But the U.S. the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war ended, but the U.S. retained its bases in Okinawa. At first, not actively, just it was a place where they could station large numbers of troops to maintained peace in Japan during the American occupation. But then, very soon after that, the Korean War started. And when the Korean War started, the U.S. engaged in a massive base-building campaign on Okinawa, which they had free reign of. The occupation of Japan itself ended in 1952, but the occupation of Okinawa continued for 20 years after that, in which the U.S. had full control of the islands and the bases on those islands. The island of Okinawa is very strategically located. So you can, from Okinawa, you can send bombing missions to Korea and to Vietnam and to China. And in fact, the U.S. did use the Air Force Base on Okinawa, the Kadena Air Force Base, as a base to bomb in Korea and also in North Vietnam.
And so then, using it for Vietnam, was there opposition expressed at that time, and how did that go forward?
Sure, and the thing about Okinawa, that's why it's important to see it in this long perspective, is that having so many civilians killed in that short period of time during World War II, the people of Okinawa have a very deep-seated antipathy toward the military and toward war. And they're very deeply pacifist people. They've tolerated the U.S. military presence because they had no choice for many, many years. But it rankled them, and it went against their own spirits and their own conscience to be involved in U.S. wars in Asia. They didn't like that, and there was very strong opposition during those years. Then Okinawa mounted a campaign to be returned to Japan, in the hope that, because Japan has a peace constitution, they would be returned to Japan and the bases would be removed. They would become like the rest of Japan, where the peace constitution was in effect. Okinawa did revert to Japan in 1972, but the bases remained. They were not removed whatsoever. In fact, the percentage of bases in the country of Japan, the percentage of U.S. bases on Okinawa has increased since that time. So there's a concentration of almost 75% of the American presence in Japan is concentrated on this island that constitutes 0.6% of the landmass of Japan.
Kozue Akibayashi, explain what happened in the 1990s with the rape scandal that led to intensification of the opposition to U.S. bases.
The